So if everybody can mute unless they talk, that will be fine. If you do want to talk, please use the mute button. If you go to the participants list on the pull up or pull down menu in the Zoom screen, then you can also see at the bottom that there are buttons where you can say yes or no. I thought there was a button to raise your hand, but there isn't. I don't understand at the moment. But anyway, there are buttons there. If you unmute, I can probably you want to say something. I'm also going to follow the chat screen. So if you want to say something and somebody else is talking, you can put things on the chat screen. So then I'll try and keep track of what goes on the chat screen for the discussion at the end. So welcome everybody. To this whole of community meeting. We will have updates by several of the key organizations in Australia. An update by Earth Observation Australia, Sylvia Michael, and on the Earth Observation Forum conference that will be held in late September next year. And then we have the pleasure of having the various directors and directors of programs of the Smart Satellite Collaborative Research Center, which the contracts were signed a few weeks ago. So now it is formally in existence for the next 7 years and will be a key factor in the space and Earth observation landscape in Australia. And that's a great, great development. So that's everything I wanted to say. So as Larissa Marfan has said in the Zoom group chat, you can raise your hand if needed. Very good. And use the chat, look at the participants list, because it's useful to figure out who's online and who's talking, etc., etc. So they're useful tools. Unfortunately, Adam Clash from the Australian Space Agency is an apology because he is sick, so that update will not happen. Although I'll have a little thing to say about some interesting developments for Earth observation at the moment. So I think we will now go into the first update, which will be by Alex Held from CSIRO.
Okay.
Alex.
Yes, good morning, everybody. I was going to mostly tell you a little bit about where we are with NOVASAR. And start of operations for NOVASAR, our role in the International Committee on Earth Observation Satellites, and also a little bit about what we're trying to do on national calibration validation of Earth observation satellite data. So starting with NOVASAR, I guess the good news is that we are towards the end of what's called the commissioning phase of the satellite. As you know, this is operated by a company called SARI Satellites in the UK. And it has as mission partners not only the UK government through the UK Space Agency, but it also has us in Australia, CSIRO, the Indian Space Research Organization, and the Philippines. So as mission partners, we're all coordinating with each other as best we can as we begin to allow for tasking of the satellite directly from here, although not directly. It goes through SARI Satellites, which then uploads the tasking to the satellite. And in due course, we'll downlink the data straight into Australian receiving stations. Most of the tests are well. We have received some sample images, which we can share pretty soon. We haven't quite finished the calibration yet. But we expect that we will receive, we will be able to receive tasking requests for research, for the research community in Australia. As you know, we're treating NOVASAR as a national research facility, not as a commercial data sales service. It's a research facility because partly because we only have about 10% of the tasking capacity for the satellite that we're currently paying for. And we will hope to open a dedicated web portal called OPAL, OPAL, and I'll send you a link a bit later on, which will allow people to request some imagery on a scientific merit basis. Right? There's a form you have to fill out, and the request will be fulfilled as we can. Sorry, I'm just choking a bit. All right, so we'll let you know as soon as possible, but I think we anticipate that. Thanks, Jono. I took a glass of water instead. Thanks. So probably by early November we'll have some news on opening up that website, the Opal system for booking. The data still looks quite amazing, still very interesting technically as well, because it's S-band radar. It's not the common SAR satellite data we get from, let's say, from Sentinel-1 from Europe, or RadarSat, or ALOS from L-band from Japan. So it's going to be very interesting what S-band can detect and how much it can penetrate into vegetation. My second point is about CEOS, the Committee on Earth Observation Satellite, that from an Australian government perspective, CSIRO and the Bureau of Meteorology and Geoscience Australia are members of. We will have the plenary next week, hosted by the Vietnam National Space Agency in Hanoi. And again, that's mostly a forum for coordination of Earth observation capabilities amongst about 30 plus space agencies and another 20 plus agencies around the world. So it's a bit of a programmatic meeting, they tend to be, but if people are interested, I can send the link to the presentations for that meeting probably when we come back towards the end of next week. We are discussing a number of priorities and interesting areas from a CSIRO or from an Australian perspective. One of the new roles we will take in CEOS will be to become a chair of what's called this strategic implementation team, which basically is the day-to-day operational part of CEOS, where we have a small opportunity to encourage certain focal areas that the different space agencies may want to collaborate on. And again, I will send you our presentation that will go to the CEOS plenary next week. I will give you a link to that so you can see roughly what, from an Australian perspective, we feel would be interesting areas to collaborate on amongst space agencies. The last point, Arnold, is a little bit about our discussions that are still underway with several of our agencies and some on this line about national coordination of satellite calibration validation. As you know, a number of our agencies and institutions operate existing infrastructure on the ground or in the ocean, and many of us have been involved in satellite validation or calibration activities around the country, which we hope to be able to bring together under a single coordinating facility or body, which we're currently calling OSCALVAL. again, it's not, doesn't, this umbrella organization won't have a lot of new funding. It's basically pulling together existing investments and looking at opportunities where we can work together a bit more efficiently. But in due course, as a collective, go to government or other potential investors, commercial or otherwise, that might have an interest in us supporting calibration programs for governmental satellites, but also perhaps in the future, commercial satellite operators that might wish to use Australia as a calibration site, right? And as a quality control site for some of their satellite data. So again, this is a bit of a work in progress, but we hope to launch the Auscalval facility at least as a sort of soft launch in the next few weeks or months as we get together and we sort out the governance and some of the mechanics of trying to create a bit of a coordinated activity around Calval for Australia. That's all, Arnold. Thanks very much. Any questions, please send me a chat, or happy to answer them offline as well.
So thank you, Alex. That was a good summary. I think from an Earth Observation Australia perspective, it might be really good to create a web page on these kind of international things like CEOS, so that people like you that represent Australia can just quickly maybe write one paragraph on the outcomes of CEOS, what's important for Australia, and then give those links to those presentations so that our involvement in the Committee on Earth Observation Satellites becomes a little bit more approachable for everybody in Earth observation in Australia. Yep. So I think this is something we will pursue offline, but I think that would be a good outcome, and I think you'll agree as well.
Yeah, I agree. A website or a newsletter or something like that. Happy to contribute to that. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be very short, but it's just so people get the links and they can start getting involved. It would be absolutely great. I've got one short question: is how does the new Australian Space Agency see SARO being the CEOS lead for Australia? Is that going to remain the same? Alex?
Yeah, sorry, at this point, we remain status quo until we have a bit more of a conversation with the space agency as to how they want to engage with some of the CEOS geo activities we're discussing at the moment, and it's a bit of a work in progress, but for now, the status is that through CSIRO, the Bureau, and GA, we represent Earth observation from a government perspective, at least in the case of CEOS. Yes, so we'll keep you in the loop if anything changes on that front.
Yeah, it's just a new addition to our landscape, the Australian Space Agency, and so it'd be interesting to know. Okay, thank you, Alex. Yes.
I was just going to say, it's just Jono here. Just one practical thing. Right now, they're not eligible to join. So there's a pragmatic point behind what Alex is saying, but certainly that's a very good point, and I'm sure that will play out.
Okay, fascinating. Thanks for that information. So that's good. Now we can go on to the next presentation by Jonathan Ross. I'll actually be forwarding the slides. So, Jono, the floor is yours.
Oh, thanks, Arnold. That's much appreciated. I think you guys are going to drive my slides, right?
Yes.
Great. So, hey everybody. I think you've probably all heard a fair bit about the Group on Earth Observations week that the Australian government will be hosting in Canberra from the 4th to the 9th of November. This year's a little bit special. Every year GEO has a plenary meeting, so a senior officials meeting with a whole range of events around it. But this year is different. Every 4 years GEO meets at ministerial level. So Minister Canavan, who is the Minister for Resources in Northern Australia, will host his fellow ministers to discuss the future for GEO over the next 4-year period. We anticipate, obviously, the key outcome from the ministerial summit will be a declaration that gives strategic and political guidance to the Group on Earth Observation for the next 4 years. So it's a pretty important week for GEO. Next slide, please. So just a bit of a flavour. There's more information, of course, on the website. It's quite a comprehensive website, but the theme that, as the host this year, we've chosen to emphasise is the role that Earth observation data will play in the broader digital economy. So not just as a kind of standalone data set of interest in its own right, which of course it is, but as a key source of big data powering the digital economy alongside what people might more traditionally think of as big data, financial data, social media data, mobile phone tracking data, those kinds of things. Our view is Earth observation is just as critical as all of those in providing fuel for the digital economy. So there's a very strong emphasis at this year's GEO Week on the digital economy. Next slide, please. But of course, GEO works on a whole range of different things, and we want the digital economy to be powered by Earth observation, but we also, of course, want that to link into bigger picture agendas. So there'll be a lot of discussion at GEO Week about how do we actually unlock the power of Earth observation to support progress in 3 big global policy frameworks that GEO has identified as priorities, and they are the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the Paris Climate Agreement, and the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. And you may recall these were all adopted around the same time by the global community, and it was around the same time that GEO held its last ministerial summit. So this one, 4 years later, is a really good opportunity for the community to discuss how it can accelerate its progress across each of those areas. So the slide you've got on display there now is the week at a glance. As Arnold says, he'll send the slides around, so I won't go into detail, but I will highlight the bottom row, the proximate events. So these are 3 other meetings, events that will be held in Canberra around or during GEO Week that may be of interest to people on this call. And they are the Asia Oceania GEO Symposium. That's the subgrouping of GEO focused on our region. So GEO is a global group, but it then divides itself into regions where countries can get together and tackle things that maybe aren't the highest priority at a global level, but are certainly regional priorities. And obviously Australia is a participant there alongside countries from our region. The UN GGIM AP group, so this is the regional subcommittee of the Global Geospatial Information Management Experts Group under the United Nations. So they'll be meeting in Canberra as well. That's a really good opportunity to link the Earth observation community with the broader geospatial community. Obviously, EO is a very important source of geospatial information, but certainly not the only one. And we need to make sure that what we're doing links in with the broader geospatial agenda. And the third one, which may be new to some people, is the UN Environment. And I'll talk a little bit more about it. They'll be hosting a meeting of their Big Data for Environment working group. And again, it's another opportunity to create those linkages where, you know, Earth observation is obviously a critical source of environmental data, but it will be most powerful when it's combined with all the other sorts of environmental data and modeling and so on down the value chain. Next slide, please. So the industry track. So this is a bit of a new thing that Australia has pioneered. Essentially, I guess the private sector and GEO have had a bit of an interesting relationship since GEO was founded. It very much is at its core is an intergovernmental partnership, but there is now a recognition within the GEO community that not only can industry obviously contribute to what GEO does, but GEO can actually create conditions where industry can flourish. So the work that GEO does can create a platform for businesses to take that intellectual property, commercialize it, and develop new products and services. And the industry track is designed to really highlight the critical role that the private sector will play in the delivery of GEO's vision over the long term. It's not something that governments and research agencies can and should do alone. We need the industry to really be supported and feel supported. So there's a whole series of events specifically targeted at the private sector. Next slide, please. And this just summarizes here. Look, this really is a Team Australia effort, and I'm particularly proud of the fact that we've got the Australian Space Agency, CSIRO, this group itself, Earth Observation Australia, the two key industry associations, the Space Industry Association and Spatial Industry Business Association, and of course Frontier SI, who we're all very familiar with, certainly in the past as the CRC for Spatial Information, very well-known groups who've really pulled together to create a program that the private sector will certainly get value from, and that the government attendees at Geo Week will feel they get value from engaging in as well. So it's a really good opportunity to link and highlight the mutual benefit of the government and research work and the commercial work linking together. And I'd like to highlight the program now is published. It's available on the Geo Week website. And in fact, you can still register to attend the industry track. So anyone who thinks, oops, it's a bit late, it's no problem. There are still hotel rooms in Canberra. It's not that far to go, and it's a really good program. Next, please. Obviously, the side events are a major feature of Geo Week, and again, I think we've upped the ante this year. There are a very comprehensive range of side events covering pretty much any topic of relevance to Earth observation and geo. And I think it's important to highlight these are not they're not conference sessions. It's not a conference as such. Certainly, there's a lot of interesting technical content in these, but these side events really are about how are different groups collaborating together to take advantage of all the good technical work that's happening and turn that into action and into projects. So if you look at it and go, oh, well, I went to the conference that talked about that, this is a very different discussion that you would have in the side event program at Geo. And the side event program is free and anyone can register to come to it. It's on the Monday and Tuesday of Geo Week. We've also had a couple of innovations this year. So there's a few different aspects to the side event program. One on the left there is what we're calling the ideas stage. So these are lightning talks, 10-minute talks, deep dives on a very broad range of quite interesting, up-and-coming, new, different topics. And we've got these things called key side events. These are really big, strategic, high-level side events bringing together a broad community, not just talking about one initiative in geo, but talking about how all the different geo initiatives on a particular topic can and should work together. And I know Arnold's certainly involved in a very important one there on water, which is obviously a cross-cutting issue across a whole range of different things in geo. And then you have the targeted side events, which are more deep dives into more specific projects or topics as well. Next slide, please. I mentioned this before. This is a really interesting one. We're glad that this group asked if they could host their meeting in the margins of Geo. So it's UN Environment's Science Policy Business Forum. It's looking at big data for the environment more generally, and I know they're certainly interested on a case-by-case basis of having other people involved in that. It's not just a typical UN Environment government bureaucrats meeting. The Science Policy Business Forum brings together the research community, the private sector and governments to tackle those sorts of challenges. Next slide, please. Very big, very short snapshot there of who's coming. We're very happy with the level of attendance that we've already got registered. We think those numbers will grow. We've got a very broad range of government attendees, international organizations, and of course, people who are coming specifically for the side events or the industry track program. So it's going to be a really great opportunity to network and meet new people and find opportunities. Next slide, please. And the question is, I know you've probably all seen various communications, and I know quite a few people in the community are already registered for parts of GeoTrack, but look, there are still opportunities to participate. If anyone's thinking, oh, I've left it too late, not at all. For example, registration for the industry track is still open. That obviously gets you into the industry track, and of course that also comes with automatic access to the side event program. So that even if maybe you don't want to sit in the plenary meeting and listen to some of that. Certainly, that's 4 days of quite detailed events related to Earth observation. If you're just interested in the side events and not the industry track, that's free registration. That's Monday 4 and Tuesday 5 November. And of course, we also have an exhibition as part of Geo Week in the conference center. And I'll be frank, I'm going to be blunt now. At the moment, the exhibition has many more foreign companies and foreign players than it does Australian industry. We've gone out of our way to create some very low-cost exhibition options that we think would be attractive to Australian industry, particular SMEs. It's very cheap in comparison to any other conference or exhibition that you may participate in. To be frank, as the organisers, we are a little bit worried that people will come along and say, well, where's the Australian industry? What's happening here? Where are they in the exhibition? It's Google and Microsoft and Amazon and SMEs from Asia and from the US and from Europe. So we do have special spots and rates available for Australian exhibitors. So please get in touch with us. And thank you all very much for your time. And thanks, Arnold, for giving me the opportunity to provide that update. I'm happy to take questions in chat as well.
Yeah, so there are 2 questions. Alex, Eva Rodriguez asked the question, but I think you answered it. She says, worth noting that attendance to the Geo Summit and Ministerial is restricted in her understanding, but all the other events are open to everybody. Alex wanted to say something, and then Stuart Finn. So Alex, go ahead.
Thanks, Arnold. I wanted to just add a little bit of detail on one of the meetings that we're trying to pull together as part of the industry track, which is what's currently called EO 2.0 workshop. That is quite deliberately designed to showcase a good number, probably 5 or 6 big global initiatives around petabyte scale Earth observation data processing and some of the principles behind these different platforms. So we will have Google Earth Engine, of course. We will have the European Data Cube initiative, ESRI, and other companies or institutions or groups that are developing improved ways for processing big data on Earth observation. The workshop is set up so that it will also allow participants to sit at tables with these different platform developers and ask questions and test their platforms to see if it works for you as a researcher or as a company for your line of work and your business. So I'd like to invite, if possible, those of you who are interested in this sort of topic to sign up to the industry track and join us for that workshop. It'll be on the Thursday, the 7th of November at between 9 and 12 in the morning. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Alex. And if you can mute now, that would be great. And Stuart Finn had a question, and then we have to go on to the next item on the agenda. Stuart.
Thanks, John, the last point about lack of Australian involvement, just to respond to that, I mean, are you able to maybe just very briefly say, well, what's the benefit to small to medium Australian companies of attending this in terms of real business outcomes? Because that is something, I mean, just providing feedback to you and the committee that this community's struggled with as a whole, and that you've done a great job, but it's still very much a one-way thing, as in come and present here and show stuff internationally. So what, and so sorry to be selfish, but what's industry going to get out of it?
Yeah, look, that's a fair question. I think one of the as I mentioned earlier, this is an Australian innovation. It's not like every Geo Week every year has an industry track and people can kind of know what the outcomes are. It is a new thing. Geo Weeks have traditionally been centered around the formal government meeting where bureaucrats get together and talk. So that, I guess, to me, does make it a bit hard for the private sector to put it in context. Like if it's an IAC or something like that, you kind of know what you're getting, right? It's got a track record, you know who's going to be there.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of what those opportunities are, I think there's not a huge amount more we can highlight than who's coming. Mm-hmm. It's a really strong list. The side events are there. They provide a way, I guess, of connecting into people who may be there from overseas, who could be potential partners or maybe interested in those products or services, and then having the opportunity to follow up with them.
Okay.
No, it is a fair point. To be frank, it is a bit of an experiment for us on behalf of the Geo community. Mm-hmm. I know that the hosts for next year are already starting to think about whether they'll do it again. And I think it is one of those things that will evolve over years. If it's seen as a successful experiment this year, we'll see other countries taking it forward. I'm sorry that's not a 100% clear answer. We're all kind of learning a bit as we go with this one.
It's an ongoing challenge. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Stuart.
So I think we actually need to go on to the next item on the agenda, which is a talk by Mehdi. And I'm just finding my right page here. So Mehdi has a decade of experience leading innovative computer vision projects. He's got a PhD from Germany in machine learning and worked as a project leader in the CRC for Spatial Information, which is now Frontier SI. He's published over 50 papers in high-ranking journals. He's won awards by Digital Globe, Microsoft, the American and UK Society of Photogrammetry and Remote Sensing. Served as a secretary of the International Society for Photogrammetry and Remote Sensing Working Group 1.4, and is a reviewer of several journals and conferences. He's now based at a startup in UWA, leading the software development team to create geospatial analytics for all kinds of industries. So, Mehdi, welcome, and I'll drive the slides for you.
Thank you very much, Arnold, for the introduction, and good morning, everyone. In this presentation, I'm just going to give you an overview of what we do in MapEasy and in terms of the project and case studies that we have completed in the past. And as Arnold introduced us, MapEasy is a computer vision company based at the University of Western Australia. And our mission is to quantify the changing planet through Earth observation with a focus on optical or image data. We are a team of experienced academics and highly skilled AI engineers with a passion to make the world a better place through technology. Next. Sorry, I think I've already covered this, but yeah, next, yeah. All right. Now the solution that we provide in this space is that we use artificial intelligence, which includes machine learning, computer vision, and big data processing, and we use image data from various platforms. It could come from satellite, from drone, from terrestrial, or even from underwater platform. And in MapEasy, we use this multi-source data and produce analytics for different kinds of industries. And our main focus is on change detection. And because this is something that recently has become available, because we've got more frequent data captured by satellite of the entire globe. So this change detection concept is now a reality. Next, please. Now, you see a snapshot of what we developed in the past. As we notice, we cover a wide range of industries. And the two main aspects that we are focused in MapEasy is mapping built and natural environment. In built environment, basically any changes to the building footprint, or for example, quantifying solar panel, or for example, the swimming pools. So I call it the urban analytics, anything that you can use Earth observation and find stuff and object in the built environment. As you will notice, another aspect of built environment is mapping road, and this is something that we have been involved in mapping roads and finding road furnitures, like for example road markings and information about, for example, the quality of the road and this sort of stuff. So that's basically built environment. In the natural environment, we work with a wide range of industries. Forestry is one of them, and we use satellite imagery and also drone imagery, and we produce a forest inventory, which includes a number of components like producing tree stocking maps, estimating the quality of the trees, or for example, creating biomass. So these sort of things that we have been doing with industry. Another aspect of forestry is tree species recognition, and which is important in producing inventory for sandalwood plantation, because in sandalwood plantation, you have a range of tree species, and to be able to create inventory, you need to differentiate between tree species. And this in the past hasn't been possible because the technology was not available. Now, these days, through deep learning, it's possible to differentiate trees. And also in agriculture, we are working with a number of organizations and farmers. We are using smartphone images, drone, and satellite to map weed, pest, and disease. As you see here on the right, the second row, we completed a project on snail detection. And another project we completed was finding cotton disease. And also another a range of other projects that we completed was quantifying weed in the, for example, in the natural environment, weeds like buckthorn and different types of weeds, and also in the agriculture like radish and also fallow weed, which is a big issue, especially in the eastern coast. Next, please. Now, these are a couple of case studies that we completed in collaboration with the Airbus defense industry. And so there are 4 case studies that we've completed. One is quantifying changes to the urban areas. And this is a big issue in developing countries and also in Australia, to my surprise, that we have high rate of illegal buildings. And in Australia, of course, the case of illegal buildings is a bit different to other countries, because in Australia, people extend the building and they fail to report to local councils. Local councils are interested to use some independent tools to identify this and also to validate that. And this is something that we develop using a very high resolution aerial imagery at the resolution of 10 centimeter. And we detect building footprint, and through that, we can identify changes to the building. As you see here in the first case studies, this pink area shows changes to buildings. Another case study is for mine rehabilitation. We use satellite imagery and quantify different types of plant species. And so the outcome of this study was that using satellite imagery, the cost would be 10 times less than using aerial imagery and LiDAR, because it's very costly. Sandalwood plantation was already covered. And as you see here, the quality of the trees on the right. And the project that we did for defense was for counting kangaroos from basically drone images for some areas. They want to see the abundance of kangaroos. Next, please. So the recent, one of the interesting application of Airbus imagery that we recently completed with our international clients, especially in Singapore, they were interested to know on the building rooftop how much of the area in the rooftop is suitable for solar panel installation. And then to be able to find those areas that are suitable for solar panel installation, we need to first identify different types of structures on the rooftop. For example, air cones, pipes, vent units, heating and cooling systems. So it's a bit different to traditional mapping that we focus on building footprint. Here, you need to be able to identify a range of substructure objects. And we completed this project for the entire Singapore, and through that, the Singaporean organization can identify how much energy they can create through solar panel if they invest in installing on the rooftop. Next, please. This is a project that we work with the WA Department of Agriculture, and this project has 4 components, and the purpose of this was using a low-cost data capture platform, which in this case we use smartphones, and through a smartphone we quantify snails, if for example they are on farm or on the belt, as you see on the left, or it could be during the day and night. So we use, for all this project, we use advanced deep learning technologies. And for snail is a big issue. This is a main source of contamination for grain industry. And for our clients, especially China from Japan, they want to know how many snails are within the grains when they are exported to China and Japan, and because there is some concern of contamination. And also for farmers, there's a problem of saving on the pesticide. So they have by using this technology, they can quantify, produce the map of snails and slugs, and they can save on herbicide by spraying only or baiting only those areas that are needed. On the right, you can see, shows the night area. After baiting, we need to identify whether snails are dead or still alive. So for that, we use videos, and because if the snails are dead, at night they are not moving. But if they are dead, there is no movement. So through that, we can estimate whether baiting has been successful or not. Next, please. And in another technology hackathon, MapEasy was awarded first place, and the purpose of this hackathon was to produce forest inventory. And MapEasy used the satellite imagery of the digital globe and produce accurate inventory of the forest. Next, please. This is one example of producing inventory. It shows an area in the south of Perth, and it's blue gum plantation. And through that, we produce forest inventory map on the right. Next, please. Now, in this geospatial space, using Earth observation data, we are not alone. There are some international competitors like Digital Globe, Orbital Insight, Planet, and Ecopia. And also the Cards Lab and some other companies that they are active in this space. But our point of difference in compared to this organization is that we have a very experienced team. We have geospatial background and also computer vision. And because we have mapping and geospatial background, accuracy is utmost important for us. So we produce very high definition accuracy data compared to other companies like computer vision that they just produce an image mask, which we know that image mask is not useful for geospatial analysis. You need to be able to produce a vector data and just a shapefile that can be used in the GIS environment. We also customize our solution to the industry need. It's not the product. We are a service-based company, and we are focusing on providing customized solution to industry, because that's the way that you can solve a real problem. And
Mehdi, just sorry to interrupt. You've got 1 more minute. Could you please wrap up?
Okay. Yeah. And because we use open source, our clients can have solution ownership. So we hand over the code so they can use it for future purposes. These are our achievements that we had within a short period of time for 2 years. And as you see, in a number of organizations, we have been given award from CSIRO, from Australian government, Digital Globe, and also from UK and American Society of Gravity and Remote Sensing. We are also open to collaboration with academic organization. This is one of part of actually our purpose, that we have been hosted at UW School of Computer Science. We have an agreement with universities, so we help academics to engage with industry, and we design the good project for PhD student that the industry can use it. Thank you very much. If you've got any question, just let me know, or you can go to our website if you're interested to know more about MapEasy, or get in touch with us. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mehdi. That was an excellent presentation and a good example of a company that's really doing some incredible things and promoting the use of Earth observation for society. So anybody, and let this be a call for anybody else who wants to present from an industry profile in our next meeting. Please contact Stuart or Larissa to propose to present, because this is a great way to get yourself known in the community. Excellent, thank you very much. So now we'll